Glad you reminded me. There we go. I turned the recording on. So the concept behind Salesforce is it's cloud based. I'm going to talk to you guys here a little bit about the cell phone side of it. But what we're going to focus on is the web interface right now. And the way that it works is the database structure is set up that you have accounts, and then related to accounts would be contacts, and then associated to contacts would be activities. Again, phone calls that you've had with the individuals, emails that you've been sending and receiving, and meetings would fall into that activity category. And then we have sales opportunities, and that becomes our pipeline, the things that we're working on from a pipeline perspective. And it kind of rolls up. You got to have an account first, and then then you should have a contact. And then once you get that data structure set up, you can then track your activities in your pipeline accordingly. So what we at the top of the page, these are tabs, and we've got a down arrow with the tab, which is gets us some quick stuff. And then what it's showing us is I can just go ahead and add a new account if I wanted to, or it's going to show me things that I've looked at recently. Or you can click right on the tab account, the name account, and it brings you to the account landing page. And the other thing that we have at the top, and would work the same with contacts and would work the same with sales opportunities, we also have the universal quick search up at the top. When you're using Salesforce a lot, you're going to, that'll be a tool that you use quite a bit. So if I said, I wanted to find Encana, typically I wouldn't necessarily go to an account page and then, account page and then scroll down it. I would come in and I would say, hey, let's do a search on Encana. And then it would bring up the universal search for Encana. Well, that didn't work too well because I spelt it wrong there. So let me try again. So Encana, and then it's going to come up and it's going to give us some different things, and I could go to the account record in Encana. So my recommendation, and I'm going to show you some phone stuff here as well, is that the universal search is the quickest way to find something, and it can be a sales opportunity, it could be a contact, it could be an account.
Does it have a function where it picks up if you did spell only part of it, or
it does,
or half the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea behind it, when you start typing it in, it starts to add, see things that you've looked at recently. But at any given time, if you're just not too sure, like Conocos can be tough. Some people will do like Conoco, 2 words or 1 word, those types of things. Anytime that I'm kind of stuck, if I put a star at the end, that's essentially a wild card, and it's going to say anything with this that has anything after that. So so here it did bring up ConocoPhillips as far as my accounts, but it also, because I put the star, you got CON, and Synovus, so it picked up kind of Synovus in there too, right? So, but ultimately, you don't necessarily have to put the star in. The star is kind of a last case scenario where I know it's in there and I can't find it. Start it and put a star behind it, and that's the wild card component of it. What I've done, one of the kind of the niche things why I focus on oil and gas services, and we're not going to spend a tremendous amount of time going over the oil and gas data that I've given you, but I'll get you enough to get started. But one thing that I've done to try help you out is if I click on accounts, and when we click on accounts or contacts or sales opportunities, we're going to come to the landing page. Over to the left, we have the ability to do what they call list views. And I can pull this down, and I have because it's a database, I've put a search together that will group accounts for you to be able to find that information more quickly. So one example, because I put the oil and gas stuff in there, I'm able to say, hey, show me facility licenses that had a reference to a gas plant to it. So I have here, kind of a list of producers. So that'd be a list of all the oil and gas producers that I've loaded up for you. And I've loaded up, everybody that's pretty much drilled wells in the last 3 or 4 years there. But then I've also segmented and say, show me guys where they have a facility that made reference they needed flaring, or some that had facilities where they made reference to a gas plant. So an example there is if I click that, it will then bring that list view up for me. And then I can come in, and anytime on a header I see an arrow, I can sort it descending, ascending. So I'm going to sort this list descending, and I've just got, what this is telling me is that I loaded up 9 oil and gas facility references that had gas plant associated with it in there. So it kind of sorts the list, largest to smallest amount of activity they have around the gas plant side of it. The important thing when we look at this information is over here on these headers, I have a field that says days since last activity, and then I have another field that says quote log count. And when we look at the AMP principle, those are the concepts that we're trying to drive here. Is one, I can use this explicit oil and gas data to build you a list of saying, hey, here's a bunch of guys that have gas plants, and it's not just producers. There's obviously, I've tagged some midstream guys in here. Now the objective is the implicit data. It's I'm calling these guys and capturing information, about potential sales opportunities. So if I click on the account Canadian Natural Resources, it will take me to that account record. I could have gone up to the universal search and typed in Canadian Natural Resources, and it would have given me the option to click on it, and I'm now in the account record for Canadian Natural Resources. When we look at the layout of this page, and we can customize it as we go, but the top part here is just some basic stuff. It's kind of it's a prospect, and we can change it to customer. We've got their website, so on and so forth. Down here, this is the related list area. And one of the things that we have is we have contacts. So one of the services that I do is I also go into LinkedIn and I grab a bunch of contacts that work at CNRL, and we'll load those in there as a bit of a reference for you. And we focused on guys that, we're focused on having production in the name of their title here. But what I can do is I can come over to the contacts, and I have a couple choices. If I have a brand new contact, I can select the new button. But before I add that contact, I always want to go to the universal search and see if they're in there already, because that will help us minimize the duplicates. The other thing I can do is I could come over here to view all, and that will give me a list view of all the contacts that we're looking for. And then, as we go down here, you can start to see we've got their titles and, some of the cities that they're located in, so we can go in and reference some of these people that we might want to call and prospect to. Or I can come over here and I can sort the account, the name of the individual, if I happen to be looking for somebody individual, and just scroll down on that side of it. So in this particular case, let's say that I want to talk to Andreas here. So again, I've got a couple different options. I can click on Andreas's name, and it will take me directly to the contact record for Andreas. Or if I know Andreas well and I'm dealing with him regularly, I could just come up to the universal search, and it will come in and quickly take me to Andreas's name. If you're dealing with him a lot, that's typically what we're going to be doing, is just coming in and clicking on that, and then that'll ultimately get us to the individual. Once we get to the person that we're looking for, that's when the AMP process starts for us. And when we look over on the right hand side here, we have the activity logging capability, and then it will give us eventually an activity type timeline. So the very first thing we see is log a call in the activity section, and then we've got a field here that says recap your call. And as soon as I click in there, it's pretty simple. I just put in a subject line. So I'm going to put in test call, and then I can put in the comments. So I'm going to say test call, and then we'll go ahead and we will save that, and then that will associate a timeline of all the activities that I've had with this particular individual. So I'm going to show you when we're after we go through the web browser, I'll bring up the phone, and we'll make sure the phone is on your we'll make sure the client is on your phone. The same process will happen with your phone, is you can look up the contact, and then we can log a call directly from our phone. The objective here is we're going to see lots of contacts, a lot of activity related to this particular contact that we're focused on. If I call that, yep.
Let's go back for a second here.
Okay.
So in your accounts, and you've got current customers, and then you've got prospects. Do you break it out any further than that, or do you just have those two types of contacts?
Again, we can break it out as much as you want, because I just kind of loaded the data. I just really just kind of put them in as prospects. What typically we would do there is, we would bring it from a prospect to a customer, but you can do additional things with it. You could do, there's a field that allows us to do some rating as well. So if I said, okay, Canadian Natural is a prospect, and then I might choose a rating functionality and say it's a high value prospect, right? And then if we look at somebody like, Enter Capita, we might say that, they're still a prospect, but they're a low value prospect. You can go ABC or high or low, and then it will allow you to segment this list further on who it is you want to target with your sales initiatives. But right now, all we did is focus on, is it a prospect or is it a customer, and then grouping it by industry.
Okay, so you don't really have, we could actually set it up so that, my belief is that when you're in the process of converting, because to me, marketing is connecting and sales is conversion. So if you're looking at the prospect, and the prospect, you're working with the prospect now, you've got a proposal out to them. So say we have a company like CNRL, and we actually have a physical proposal out to them right now. We could put in there, we could create a bucket that we stick them in called converting. They haven't converted yet to a customer. They haven't become a customer yet, but they're not a prospect anymore. They're in the mode, we're working with them to get them from a prospect to a customer.
Yep, you could definitely do that. That would be a something that you could. So Mark and I work with Mark, and we can add an additional value to this. So right now I've got this prospect field, so we got, customer, prospect. We could put whatever value you want in there, and then that would be identified. And then you can create a list view. We could come over here, and I'll train Mark up, and he'll pass that on to everybody on how to create the list view of all the guys that you're in the conversion stage with.
So we could actually then get out a report at the end of each month or each week of all the ones that we're in the midst of converting. So, we could actually set a simple test, which is, have they received a proposal yet?
Yeah.
Or have they received a seminar? Have they attended one of our seminars, or something like that, something that differentiates them directly from prospects?
Yeah, no, you can definitely do that. I mean, and there is a lot of things you can do, and I think that's the goal, is the segmentation, right? I mean, who is rising to the top, and then, who is not. Just a pretty simple snapshot again. When I just look at that, I'll just bring it up here. When I look at that one list, so let's say that, again, it's just an example of segmentation. We could be segmenting the list on any value that you want to put in there. But you could see with Canadian Natural Resources, I logged that call 0 days since my last activity. So that's telling me I have an activity today. And then we have an outstanding quote with that particular customer.
Right.
So those are two indicators when we look at our list of, who's who in the zoo on that side of it, right? So, if I take a look at it, and I can, again, sort this list, ascending and descending, we can take a look at as it relates to Salesforce. These, out of all the accounts I have listed here, these are the ones that there was an activity within the last 47 days on that side of it. And you can do lots of lists around that side of it.
Do you break it out? You talk about the contact within an account. Do you talk about the person that we're working with directly on a project? Is that broken out into your contacts?
Well, again, you can do some different things to segment that. When you look at contacts is, contacts is suspects and prospects and people that you're working with. Right? So they're all bundled in here. We can do some things to tag them associated with that.
Can I ask, Pat, just to maybe streamline it so we don't have to try to imagine or interpret what we're going after is, if I'm not mistaken, what Duncan's trying to identify is how do we know that something's boiling to the surface of a sales funnel or getting through the sales funnel appropriately? Like, can we establish steps and then track those steps?
Yeah. So again, when we look at it, a couple things are happening here. One is on our activity timeline, we see everybody we're talking to. So we end up having a lot of contacts in there, but based on who we're talking to, the cream rises to the top, right? So I might have 300 production contacts in there. We might only have activity with 5 of them. So that kind of tells us from a reporting perspective, who at CNRL are we talking to? The second component is when I speak with that particular contact is, and I'm going to go back to this particular Andreas information here. So that's why we want to log our emails and we want to log our calls, because that drives the cream to the top. When we get a sales opportunity, we then are going to log that in the Salesforce. And we've got our two choices here. Is it a PureJet or is it a FormTech opportunity? I'm going to say PureJet. And then it opens up the form associated with the PureJet opportunity. Today, we're going to keep it very simple. Is we have to name the opportunity. When I name the opportunity, some people say it gets a little bit redundant, but I ultimately always want to kind of start it with the company name, because there are cases where we're searching opportunities and seeing that can be helpful for us. And then I might want to say, well, what type of product line is it? So I might put in the opportunity name that it's a PureJet 5. And then I often come up with a location reference. So let's say that this happens to be Bonnyville or a plant or whatever you want. You don't have to do it this way, but that is a good example of a naming convention for a sales opportunity. And the reason, again, I might be in my phone and I might go to opportunities and just type CNRL, and it just, when it brings up a list view of CNRL, this will hopefully give me enough information to say, yeah, that's the one that we were looking for.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if we had, say we're dealing with Husky, or say we're dealing with CNRL, and we have 6 opportunities all going on by the end of this year, we should have CNRL, and then PureJet with the product name, and then the physical location.
I would recommend that, yep. Sorry, go ahead.
As a way to build that, but we could build it any way we want, as long as we can differentiate, how we're looking at these 6 opportunities or 5 opportunities.
And you guys should socialize it a bit and standardize it.
The new sales opportunity as it starts. What kicks off a new sales opportunity? Is that the first phone call you do with them? What kicks that off? Because you've got a quote log name, but you may not even be doing a quote yet. You're just basically starting a sales opportunity, right? Right.
Again, a little bit comes down to the definition of what you want, but in the sales opportunity, we have a mandatory field called stage, and I just have the most basic stages in there, but ultimately, when you look at it, the first couple stages are, I've identified, I'm qualifying, and I'm developing, and then I'm getting to proposal, and then I'm negotiating. So this becomes the sales process that you're going to follow, the sales path you're going to follow. If you don't like those, if internally you say, we're going to go with something a little bit different, again, Mark can make the adjustments. These are all customizable based on yours, but that is a pretty standard sales path that's used within a CRM. So if I was talking about this and I was qualifying it, or maybe I just identified it, I could put it in a very early stage, but if I've actually quoted it, I'm going to pick proposal.
Okay, but when you're coming in and you're identifying these people, you have no idea where the location might be or even what product they might be looking at. So you've got to fill in a log name before you pick that stage?
Well, I mean, myself, if I'm just cold calling people, I'm just logging activity. I'm not building sales opportunities related with that, right? If I call the production engineer who looks after, whatever facility and for CNRL, and I'm just going through qualification with him from a needs analysis, I'm just going to log that as activity. I called Johnny and I spoke to him about this. When he says, hey, we're running 5 flare stacks out there, and we in a couple of them where we've got some budget to look at some efficiencies, then at that particular point, I'm going to come over here and create my sales opportunity.
Okay, so walk us back, and just following what Vlad was saying earlier. So walk us back to the first thing, like let's just walk through that process. Like start us with a cold call. So not even a cold call. So we've been given a name by somebody, and this person is working for, I don't know, you pick somebody off of that list that you've got good data for.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm a data guy and things like that, if I was hired by you guys, I would say, okay, let's say I'm going to go after gas plants to start with, and again, we'll just take a look at it, and I say, start at bigger to smallest, and then at that particular point, if I have very little contact and I need to do some qualification with it, again, we can just go right back to Canadian Natural, but I can go with any one of these that you want. I pick up Canadian Natural Resources.
Okay, so we don't have any data in there right now, and say we're going to load a contact in there, and let's say it's
So I'll show you this. I mean, I put a fair amount of contacts in here that I would suggest you consider leveraging, right? So when I go over here to contacts, I would say view all, and if you got a contact from somebody else, then I'll definitely show you how we want to go ahead and enter that in here. But if I say, okay, I'm going to sort this thing out by title here, and when I start going down here, I'm going to say, okay, I'm specifically looking for some production engineers, and I want to talk to them, and find out what roles and responsibilities that they have. Everybody that I put in here is on LinkedIn. So you could copy this name and put it into LinkedIn and get more detail before you decided to give them a call. But here I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, okay, I've got some more guys here that, a little bit more description. And I've got here Neil Cook, Deep Basin South. And let's say I know that they've got a gas plant down there that does some flaring. Some background on that side of it. So I'm going to click on Neil's name. I might edit it, put some caps in there just to clean the record up. If I want to clean it up, I would just edit button here. And then at this particular point is I would call into the main number because I don't have his actual phone number, but I do have his email address, so I could email him directly. But I like to call people. I would pick up the phone and I would say, hey, Neil, I see you're a production engineer for the Deep Basin South area. This is what we do. I was wondering if we might be able to meet. And at that particular point, a couple things could happen. One is when I first call him, it could be a voicemail, and then I could say, hey, I left him a voicemail, and I'm just going to put in here, test voicemail. But I would put in what I wanted from a voicemail perspective. I would save it. Now I know that I have activity with Neil Cook. I can do that in reports. I can do it in list views, see that that's somebody that I've gone after. I can also come over here and I could say, I'm going to assign myself a new task. and the new task is a callback.
Yeah.
So I might go something like this, give myself a date, and say I'm going to on the 19th, I'm going to call him back. Eventually, I'm going to get a hold of Neil, and Neil's going to say, good thing you contacted me. I'm in charge of the workover, and we're going to do some turnaround here later in Q1, and we're looking at ways to make our flaring more efficient. And I'm going to say that is awesome. At that particular point, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say new, and I'm going to say it's a PureJet opportunity. And then when I open it up, I'm going to fill this form out. Now I know that I'm focused on this particular sales opportunity, and that is where I'm now going to spend most of my time when I'm working with that customer.
So, Pat, when you set up that new task for yourself, how does it remind you? So it can integrate two ways, right? One way with Exchange will go into your calendar. Is that correct?
That's correct. So as a task,
Yep.
not as an event.
Okay.
Right? So it's truly a task, not an event. The other thing that we have in Salesforce, so when you log in, a pop-up window will come up and it will show you all your tasks today and your outstanding tasks. And at any given time, I can click on the tab here called Tasks. And then when I take a look at it, I just open it up in a new tab here, is I can come over here and say, okay, show me my tasks, and it will show me a list of the tasks that I have. Or I could say, what are all my overdue tasks, or what are all the tasks that I have today. So those would be one way for me to be able to manage the tasks that I've set up for myself.
So, Pat, can I assign a task to another user in Salesforce?
You can, for sure. So when I'm in that particular task, is I can see here on this side of it that it's assigned to, when I first create it, after I save it, it then brings me to this page and a little pencil shows up where it says assigned to, and then I can come in and I can search any user that I want that's in the database. And then that task will be assigned to them, and it will send them notification that they've just been assigned a new task.
And by who as well, right?
And by who, exactly. So I am going to now assign that task. So I just changed that over and assigned it over on that side of it. So, again, the process is pretty straightforward in the sense that, when we look at the accounts, we're going to go through. I've got some accounts in there. You might have some contacts. If you want to add a contact, you got a new contact. You were out at a meeting. You met somebody. You did a search to see if they're in there. We just click new. Once you've clicked new, you then start the process of logging your activity. And if there's a sales opportunity associated with it, we then create the sales opportunity.
So quick question, Pat. So I see at the right all the activity, right? Correct?
Correct.
Now, is that all the activity in CNRL, or can I filter it by opportunity or contact?
Well, it's just at this particular level, it's all the activity with CNRL because I'm in the CNRL account page.
Okay.
Right? When I come over here and I see who it's related to, then it's going to be specifically the activity related to Neil.
Okay.
Okay? And then our reports are going to show that as well when we start looking at the reports. I'm just going to build this sales opportunity here so we can get one open and we can start to kind of talk about this a little bit more. And so I'm just going to put in here, CNRL, and then PureJet, and then, again, I'll just say that this happened to be, he's a Deep Basin guy, so I'll say it's Deep Basin, gas plant. Could be what it is. Because I'm doing it for the contact, it's saying, hey, what's the account that we want to put in there? So I'm going to pick it's Canadian Natural Resources. I like to segment, my opportunities. Are they new or existing? So is it like totally greenfield or is it kind of brownfield from an account perspective? So I'll say this is a new one. I've got my product line totally customizable, but it helps us do a little bit segmentation from our reporting perspective. My stage, I'm in the development stage. I talked to him. He said there's an opportunity. I haven't quoted him. I don't know my amount yet. He told me that it's going to be, they're going to do a plant maintenance at the end of Q1. So I'm going to say, I believe that I'm going to get this particular opportunity closed by the end of Q1. And in the description, this is a test. But I would take some time and I would fill out the description appropriately. I'm going to save that opportunity. Now I'm still in Neil Cook's contact record. I now see the opportunity related to Neil. When I click it and open it up, what we see associated with that opportunity is some of the details, but we also have our call activity. From this point forward, whenever I'm dealing with this opportunity, I always log all my calls against the opportunity. So if I called Neil up, and then I can see here that Neil is my my primary contact. If I call Neil up, the one additional step that I need to do, because I'm doing it from the actual opportunity, I'm just going to say test again, and then put another test in here, is that I just need to go to one extra step, and I need to say that Neil is the guy that I'm related to. Now in my report, it's going to say I had a call with CNRL, I had a call with Neil at CNRL, and it was related to this particular opportunity. And we really want to see as many calls logged against sales opportunities as possible. When you stop logging calls against the sales opportunity, the probability of close goes down exponentially.
And what do you define as,
the more
as
active,
a call?
the more calls
Is
we
that
have
a
against the
meeting
sales
as well?
opportunity, the better the chances to close it.
Pat, I
Sorry?
lost you there. You were either muffling or you were you just disappeared there for a second. Can you?
Okay. Yeah, so what I was saying is that we want to log as many calls and emails that are related to our sales opportunity. The concept is, and if I have a sales opportunity and I haven't had activity in that opportunity in the last 30 days, the chances of that opportunity moving forward goes down exponentially. So when you create a sales opportunity, the goal is we're going to see lots of activity against it. And the more activity in the shorter period of time, the higher the probability that the opportunity is actually going to close for us.
So Pat, this is Mark. So when you define a call, and just to clarify for everybody, that's not just a phone call, right? That's a meeting, that's anything, right?
Yeah, so again, we've got to work on, because of the way your calendar and your Outlook is set up, and we've got to talk about that a little bit more, it's difficult. I can't sync the meetings automatically. So you would have to come in here and log that. Could be a little bit problematic as far as tracking meetings with that. A call is a phone call. I spoke with the guy. I logged my phone call. We also, in the past activity, what will happen when I'm forwarding my emails, it'll show up as a past activity instead, and it will have a little icon of an email, and it will show the emails that we have on that side of it.
So Pat,
if we're in a position down the road to...
Pat, just clarify, so we are moving to Exchange.
Okay,
yeah.
Well then we'll get the meetings too. So what will happen when we get Exchange set up is if you invite a person to the meeting in the meeting invite, it will automatically sync to Salesforce against that particular contact.
Okay.
But you have to invite them. If you just put in a subject line, meeting with Neil, then that will just go into Salesforce, but it will just go into the general, won't be assigned to anything. But if I go if I go Deep Basin meeting with CNRL, and then I go, I've invited Neil, then it will automatically sync to Neil.
Yeah.
So that is really what our goal is. And then again, once we've, what I did is we come into the details associated I'd have a nice description of the of this particular opportunity. If you end up doing a physical quote for the customer, a couple things that we would be doing here is, one, I would come in and I would change the status from develop, and then I would move it into proposal, and then I could save this change, and then associated with that, so related to that, I could then upload the file, the physical quote that I gave the customer.
And we can upload any file related to that opportunity.
Any file. If they sent you specs, if they sent you an engineering diagram, whatever you want, you've got lots of data storage. Anything related to this particular opportunity, you can upload the file.
Perfect.
So is it something that we can modify a little bit, Patrick? Because when you said a call is a call, our business is a little bit different, not by much from a traditional sales approach, but we have an initial engagement, and it becomes clear whether or not there's anything to talk about in the future. It's either the wrong person or the right person, or they either have a need or don't have a need for PureJet at this time. Maybe we can revisit it periodically, but what I'm getting at is there something, instead of calling it a call, could we call it contact? And whether it was an email or a handshake or a phone call, it was our first engagement. And then usually things, fall under the categories you have listed thereafter, where you had a sales opportunity. It pretty much covered all of the other scenarios that happened after that first meeting. But is that something we can do, or we could just leave it as call, I guess?
No. This is a free form text box. I strongly recommend you guys kind of, each individual can do it, or you can do it as a bit of a company. I would do things like, if I was going to, exactly when we look at the call, I would say, if I was, doing something like I'm just calling them for the first time, I might always do this as the subject line, intro call, right? Or if, whatever you wanted to, that subject box is free form. You can put whatever, as much description as you would like in the subject line.
Yeah, under that
helps you.
Under the initial contact point, I guess we'd put who was the initial person that had the contact, and maybe some notes on the dialogue, and usually, there's either a follow-up or there isn't, and then we can move them slowly into, I guess, as you have classified it, Patrick, a sales opportunity. And there's different levels of it. When you had that pull-down tab, you had different levels of the sales opportunity. So I think we could probably work with that and boil our customers to the surface that are really, ready for PureJet.
Yeah. So when I look at it, again, I just went back to Canadian Natural Resources. I may have entered my own contact. In this case, I've got all these contacts here, and I want to get in. I'm working these guys deep and wide. I'm kind of coming down the line here. Who am I going to call next? I'm going to call another production engineer. I'm going to call the VP, whatever it is. Here, maybe it's froth treatment for whatever reason. I bring up this particular contact. I decide I'm going to give them a call. When I come in here, it could be like this. My very first call, intro call, could be the subject line, and then it could be, spoke with them about this and does not require our services. And I put that in my comments, and then bang, I'm done. Now I always have that. If anybody else comes in and says, hey, I'm going to give Lohan a call, I can just come over to the activity timeline. I can see I have an intro call. I can open it up, and it's going to tell me I spoke with them. Don't bother calling them again.
So I guess what I'm asking for, Pat, is if there's an easier way for us to just show that without needing to even click on the individual, just move them through the different levels. And the second part to that question is there's different individuals looking at Salesforce in our company. So some of them are going to be direct sales, and some of them aren't very sales oriented, might be finance related at the company, and some of them are board members or other managers. So what we want to do is be able to quickly identify an opportunity as it goes from level 1 to level 2, and then be able to hand off the relay baton at level 2 to our sales team, and then, you know, bring in some of our executive team if we need at level 5 or 6, and be able to prompt that in a calendar or on our phone somehow, you know, just to be able to say, we're at a level 5 with this customer in Salesforce. It looks like I got to book it in my calendar to meet at, or to be at the next meeting if they're a senior level person at the company.
Yeah. So again, so what we would do there is that, like, I called this guy, and then let's say I brought him in as level 1. He said, yeah, that sounds good. I would have created a sales opportunity for himself, just like my accounts and my contacts. When I click on the sales opportunity, I then can get a list view of all the sales opportunities that I've created. And those sales opportunities are going to be set up by stage. So if I come in here and I say, you know, what I've done here is I've got, you know, a list: develop, identified, proposal, negotiation. That becomes the queue, because we're taking them down our sales path. Who else do we want to get involved? So if I come in here, I can go in and I just click on sales opportunities, my list view. I said, show me all the stuff that I have a proposal, and I don't have any in a proposal right now. But show me all the stuff that I have identified, and then we don't have any identified. Let's see, I don't know why they're developed. Maybe we have them all tagged as developed here. So that's interesting. I'll have to go look at that list view and make sure that, see what's going on. I'll go back to all, why we don't have the stages. But that's the key. Oh, I didn't have identified there. So that's the key, is that once we move them, so, and I can't believe I'm forgetting the guy's name that I launched it with here, but he just came in and he said, okay, here's a bunch of accounts that he wanted to target, and he marked them all as sales opportunities to be identified. That's fine if that's the process you want to use, but when I look at the opportunity quote log name, Pemina, he didn't have the rest of it in there. He didn't have a product, and he didn't have a location. And then when I look at the actual opportunity, he didn't even have, or he has a contact there. So he was starting to work. You could see here that he said, I'm going to go after Pemina. I'm going after Brent, who is the project safety supervisor. And then these are the phone calls that I have with Brent. When I log my calls against this, it doesn't have to just be with Brent. It can be with anybody at Pemina that I want to try and drive this particular opportunity forward.
Yeah, that might be a level of detail, Pat, that right now we're not quite yet drilling into. I think where we're at is we want to structure it appropriately. I think at 10,000 feet first. So assuming we have 2 or 3 salespeople that work, you know, at our company at PureJet and at FormTech, we want them to log in and pick up opportunities that aren't just on a big list. We likely won't be doing a lot of cold calling, not to say we shouldn't, but that hasn't been our approach to date. So what we want to do is take the people we have called, because a lot of people want our PureJet product, and we want to log them beyond level 1, which is go out and contact them. And when we've established contact, we should know, are we going to be contacting this person further in the next 90 days or not? And if it is yes, that should be handed off to a salesperson, and maybe there should be a discussion at our company about what details we need. Usually we have what's called a gas analysis that we provide the salesperson, and they try to, you know, figure out, okay, if you do need a PureJet potentially, here's the gas analysis we need. When that comes back to us inside the company, that should trigger the engineers to get involved, and there's milestones and timelines to be met there. And then that has to go back to the salesperson, that baton, you know, whatever it is, 1 week later, hopefully less. And then, you know, then at some point senior management comes in if it's a bigger strategic opportunity, and there should be a trigger for that. We can work on that internally, but we need it structured that way, if that makes sense, Pat.
It does make sense, and I would suggest again, so like today, how do you get a new lead?
I went to use his upgrade.
It usually comes through word of mouth or a text publication or email inquiry.
So somebody, so let's assume that it was an email inquiry.
Yes.
Okay. So you get an email from somebody that says, "I'm interested in your PureJet technology." Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up here and you're going to search and see if that individual's in the database. And if they're not in the database, then we're going to search the account. So let's just assume that this individual came in from in Canada. But we haven't got that individual in there yet. So I'm going to go, I searched, the individual wasn't in the database, but in Canada is in the database. I'm now going to come in here and I'm going to enter this particular individual's information that we have. So first name, so I'll just go Donald, last name
M.
Duck.
Mary.
What I'm going to do is I really like titles. It'd be great if we had a title, some phone number, email. I then save it.
Frank.
I now have that information here for this particular contact that I've added.
As I do.
Now what I do is I come over to the sales opportunity and I say new.
Yeah.
Is it PureJet or is it FormTech?
Really off.
And then I pick that it is identified. So it came in through an email. We've identified
one
it.
Of the upgrades.
And then I put in, I've got the individual there, and I'm going to put in Canada, and I build it. And any activity that I do from that point forward, I do against this opportunity. At the quote log name, all we know right now is we don't have a location, or maybe they did give us a use case. And then I use underscores, you don't have to use it. And then I say it's, PureJet is the opportunity. And I'll just go through it. The account is in Canada. I got to learn how to spell Encana properly when I use it. Encana. So there is my Encana organization. New customer, we haven't done anything with them. Product line, we don't know. We're going to leave it blank. It's early, just identified. We don't know the amount. Close date, we don't have a clue. So we're going to move it way out. We're going to take it out 3-4 months. And then I would copy maybe the body of the email into the description.
Can you leave the
I then
close
save
date?
it.
Can you leave the close date unpopulated? Because this is what I'm trying to get at. I don't want to fudge software into doing a bunch of stuff that isn't designed to do, like eliminate 10 fields and fill out fake fields, and then we can move on. I'm hoping mainly, you can help us get rid of some of those fields, or maybe there's just a bypass if you leave them empty. As you said, I don't want to put fake deadlines 4 months out that prompts a bunch of people to react, and really it's just we're trying to, trick the system.
But when you look at a pipeline, when you're trying to create a pipeline, the pipeline has really kind of two components to it. And I'll show you a graph. What stage are we at?
Actually.
And then when do we think it's going to close?
Right?
So if I, just listen to me for a sec, just listen for a second. What you can do with a pipeline is we just qualified this. I don't have to include identified in any of my pipeline stuff. But I have to, start instilling a discipline that says we're going to put in a close date, even if I put it out 6 months. I then call this guy, Donald Duckett, and he says, hey, Pat, you know what? My mistake. We lost it, and it moves down. Or he says, this is great. We move them up, and we start working to what the actual close date
I just think there's a step missing between step 2 and 3 is all I'm thinking. And somehow maybe we could get the software to help us with it. Because before we start posting fake dates in our software, I wanted to make sure.
It's not a fake date. I mean, it's just a date.
Right.
But it's related to the stage, right? It's the...
right.
Ultimately, if you use this system, you're going to have a record of how long it takes you to close every deal.
Okay. I guess what I'm asking is there a way to help us get through qualifying customers? Because you had a giant list there, and I think that's awesome, Pat. Let me just say thanks. And I think that's a great list for us to go through. we don't have a teleconference center or we don't have a direct sales team, so we won't be going through those to identify opportunities. We'll still comb through it to help us maybe.
So glad Joe came up with those opportunities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we basically just have to go through it and see if it's real or not, right? And it's too big of a list.
Yeah, what I want to do is we just want to deal with the hands. We have a limited bandwidth with our 30 employees at our team. We have 1 or 2 salespeople, so we need, and there's several people that want our product already. What we really need to do is a way to track and move them through the different levels of the sales funnel. And it might be from level 1 to 8. I don't know how many steps there are, maybe 9. But that's what I need, Patrick, is a way for us to track and monitor and keep our staff involved in that, because there's different team members, as I noted, in different steps. There's a salesperson, then there's an engineer, hand it back to sales, then executive come in to close to help support that process and see if there's other opportunities, beyond a single sale. So that's going to be very valuable to us if we can grade them in levels and maybe not have dates at the early ones. So level 1, level 2 sales leads won't have any dates with them because we haven't hammered out, what location it's at, or we're just working through setting up meetings to get in front of engineers perhaps, and we think there's an opportunity. So if there's a way to program that for us, that would be terrific.
Yeah, I guess, so this is the levels right here.
Yes.
You can define them any way that you want. We can add more levels. We can reduce more levels.
Perfect.
But I'm in the sales opportunities object. Just like we went over, a guy from Canada, sent in a request. I need to follow up with him. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to log it. Whoever logs it, it doesn't really matter. And we're going to put it in as identified. Around identified, we're going to have some criteria that a salesperson needs to speak with that individual.
Yes.
Once I do this, what I'm able to do is, once I've got this one actually created here, is then I can get it. I can then say to whoever is the next person, I need you to follow up on this particular opportunity. So that's the stage. And then it's either going to move up this channel, up this path, or it's not going to move at all. Or it's just going to be, there's nothing. It's so what we have down here, close lost, project deferred, so on and so forth. You can change the terminology, but if he comes in and we qualified and he says, no, sorry, my mistake, we just take it out of our list and it doesn't show up anymore. And we track all of our phone calls and emails related to the follow-up against this particular opportunity.
Okay, that's good, because even if we will have, let's say, anywhere from a dozen, maybe to 2 dozen customers at any given moment, they'll likely need several peer jets, and what'll be more important is to keep the relationship fresh. And so another part of the sales funnel, what we wanted to do is to be able to have an item at the end that is able to move that sales opportunity right back to square one if they need more peer jets in the company after the first one. And we're finding a lot of customers are suggesting multiple peer jets if the first one works well for them. So we may have only 25 customers ultimately. Maybe if we're being really enthusiastic, we can say 50 customers, but hopefully each one will have the need for 10, even maybe 100 peer jets. So we need the ability that after the first sales opportunity, if you want to call it that, closes, that it be somehow there's a question asked, is there additional opportunity, and then for it to start back at square one or something like that. Because this...
that's where they don't necessarily have to start back at qualify. It could be up the channel a little bit further.
Perfect.
In the sense that it's already been qualified, but we're developing it.
Perfect.
Right? And that becomes your kind of terminology. So we say, okay, we got our first deal. Now we've identified, opportunity. They've mentioned the second opportunity. We need to develop that. what you can do from this particular opportunity object is over in the right-hand corner. When I've marked this closed one, I can pull down this little arrow and say clone. And then that will replicate this first one that we've created. And then I would then identify that I've got a second one that we're working on. Our goal is, yeah, you're right, with Encana, let's say Encana took 20 peer jets, but it was over 5 different transactions, I would have 5 different opportunities created with the Encana account.
Right.
And each one of those accounts would be Encana, the product, and the location, or multiple locations that we might be looking at.
Right.
And then a nice description associated with that. And then are we qualifying them? Are we proposing them? Are we actually in a proposal with that customer?
Okay, so maybe if you can help Mark just understand how to edit the field. What we can do, Patrick, is in
word is what you want to do is if you come up here, up in the top right hand corner, there's that little icon, and we come in here and we click on the settings component, and then when we get to this particular landing page, over on the right hand side is my email. Under email, my email to Salesforce, you'll see this particular email address here. Right click, copy it, go to your Microsoft Outlook, create a contact called Salesforce, put that in as the email address, and then whenever you send an email out that's related to a sales opportunity, add that Salesforce guy as a blind CC. And then that email will go into Salesforce until we get the Outlook up in operation.
Mark, you may have noted that there's an old email on your screen in that.
Yeah, I just noticing that right now.
Yeah. So
I will change that. Does that affect anything there, Pat? I guess that.
no. Yeah, I'm not too sure. My enter email address that you use to email leads and contacts. Only email addresses are special can be added to the activity history. So yeah, we've got to change that. We're going to put yours in there. So I'll just do it right now since I'm in this.